My heart pounded so violently I thought it might burst right out of my chest when I overheard my mother-in-law insisting that my husband leave me. Her voice was low, urgent, every word laced with contempt. I stood in the hallway clutching a grocery bag and straining to hear, uncertain whether to barge in or remain hidden. I'd always known she disliked me, but I never imagined she'd stoop to dismantling our marriage with such cold determination. My pulse thundered in my ears. A flurry of questions rattled my brain. Had I been naive to believe love could triumph over her disapproval? The strangest part was, she had no idea the house she'd urged him to vacate actually belonged to me. I placed the groceries down in the hallway and leaned closer to the partially open living room door. My mother-in-law's voice, usually sweet when put on for show, brimmed with hostility as she hissed at her son, my husband Adam. "You deserve better," she said, every syllable sharpened by scorn. "This woman is beneath you. She has no status, no class, and I refuse to let you waste your life in her shadow." She paused as though expecting him to nod in agreement. Instead, Adam mumbled something inaudible. My heart clenched, torn between wanting him to defend me and dreading that he might fold under her pressure. Her next words were the final blow: "Pack your things. Tomorrow we'll move you into a proper home. Let that woman figure out how to get by on her own." I felt fury and sorrow collide inside me. I was furious because she had the audacity to treat me like disposable trash, and I was sorrowful because Adam, who had once vowed to stand by me, was apparently not mustering much of a protest. If he had, I probably would have heard him raise his voice. Instead, there was a meek hush, which only fueled her confidence. My chest tightened with betrayal, but I forced myself to breathe through it. I reminded myself that he loved me once. Perhaps he still did, but he was spineless in the face of his domineering mother. I pushed the door open, cutting off whatever else she was about to say. My hands trembled, but my voice came out steady enough. "I'm home," I announced. Adam jumped, cheeks coloring in guilt. My mother-in-law twisted around, narrowing her eyes at me like I was an intruder. Her entire demeanor screamed indignation, as though I'd walked into a meeting I had no right to attend. I maintained a serene mask despite the turmoil inside. "Please go on," I said softly. "I'd love to know what plans you're making for my husband." She glared, cheeks flushing. "This discussion is between my son and me," she snapped. "You weren't invited?" I smiled thinly. "I should think I have some involvement, considering it's about my husband." I turned to Adam, searching his face for some sign of loyalty. He looked away, swallowing hard. "You can speak openly," I continued. "I'm curious to hear what you have in mind." My mother-in-law's glare intensified. She wore an expression suggesting she wished I would dissolve into thin air. "I'm telling Adam it's time to come back to his family's house," she said, deliberately ignoring the fact that I was also his family now. "He's been living here under illusions that you two can carry on indefinitely. But I've convinced him that it's best he start fresh." Adam remained silent, which fueled my hurt. I felt my anger flare, but I kept my voice measured. "I see," I said, turning to Adam. "Is that what you want to leave?" He rubbed the back of his neck, glancing at his mother. "My mother thinks," he began, and she cut him off with a withering look. "It's not about me simply thinking, Adam," she scolded. "It's about what's good for you. A better environment, better opportunities. This house is small, it's in a poor neighborhood. She halted when I lifted an eyebrow at her. "I mean," she continued more cautiously, "you shouldn't be struggling here when you can live in comfort with us." I rolled my lips together, striving to keep calm. "You say it like Adam's a child who can't decide for himself. We're adults. We share this life, this home." She emitted a short laugh. "Share? Don't be ridiculous. Everything in Adam's life was purchased by my husband and me. He wouldn't have ended up here if not for your manipulations. I'm simply correcting an old mistake." My cheeks burned at her audacious ignorance. Little did she know that I'd purchased this house with my own savings before I even met Adam. I never flaunted that fact. It felt unnecessary. Adam had a decent job, but he contributed a fraction of the mortgage. For me, it was always about building a life together. But apparently, she believed I was some opportunist who'd latched onto her precious son. A spike of anger jabbed at my chest. Still, I held my tongue, determined to see how far she would go. Adam cleared his throat. "Mom, maybe we can talk about this later," he said weakly. I do love her." His words, though quiet, seemed to make her flinch. She huffed. "Love? Don't be ridiculous. She's offered you no connections, no social standing. You're throwing away your future." She stabbed a finger at me as though I were the root of all evil. "We'll pack your bags tonight, Adam. I'll have your things moved by tomorrow." At that point, I could no longer feign politeness. With a measured breath, I said, I think you might want to be careful about telling Adam to move out. After all, if he does, you do realize that I'll be the one staying here, right? She snorted. Oh, I'm sure you'd cling to this house. But let's be clear. This is the property Adam's family originally helped him with, correct? I imagine you'll be finding a new place soon enough. I almost laughed. The poor woman truly believed her own fantasies. We can handle the mortgage, she went on dismissively, and we'll keep everything in Adam's name. You'll have no claim to it. I turned to Adam, tilting my head. Is that what you told her? Adam mumbled something unintelligible. I pressed. Adam? What is it you've been telling your mother? He gave me a pleading look. I might have, I said a while ago that your finances were tight, that the house was in my name so it'd be easier. My eyes widened. You told her the deed was in your name? He shrugged helplessly and I felt a pang of betrayal. Why would he lie about that unless he was ashamed that I made more money than he did? My mother-in-law saw my shock and pounced. It's not a lie if that's the arrangement, she said tartly. Now you see why it's best you step aside. This is Adam's family home. You're just a tenant? I let out a slow exhale, my emotions churning. Should I reveal the truth now or let them continue under their delusions a bit longer? Part of me wanted to humiliate her the way she'd humiliated me, march into the next room, produce the deed and watch her splutter. Another part wanted to speak with Adam privately. But the vicious sneer on her face nudged me to do it then and there. I decided to remain calm though. Her arrogance was staggering. I smoothed my shirt, speaking quietly. I think we need to clarify something, but perhaps Adam can do that for you. I turned, fixing him with a steady look. Go on, Adam. Tell your mother who actually paid for this house. My mother-in-law's eyes flickered with confusion, but Adam hesitated. Sweat beaded at his temple. Mom, he said finally, the truth is, I didn't buy this place. She did. She had the savings. The mortgage is in her name. I only pitched in a bit for renovations and monthly expenses. He paused, swallowing as his mother's face went pale. I didn't correct you because I was worried about how you'd react if you learned I wasn't the main provider. Her mouth worked, but no sound emerged for a beat. Then she found her voice, clipped and shaky. That's ridiculous. Adam, you told me you found a place. You insisted it was your investment. He grimaced. I wanted you to respect me, Mom. I was tired of hearing how I wasn't living up to your standards. So I bragged that I bought the house, that I was the one providing. But that's not the truth. A thick silence draped the room. I watched her expression twist from shock to fury to something resembling panic. She sputtered, So, you're telling me this entire time this woman, she pointed at me again, owned the house? I folded my arms. My name is on the deed. I purchased it before Adam and I even got engaged. He moved in after we married. It's our marital home, yes, but legally it's mine. Her jaw tightened. Then, if Adam leaves, you remain here? I nodded. That's the arrangement, I said softly. She scoffed, turning on her son. So you have nothing? No property? No fallback? If you walk away now, you'll have to find a new place from scratch? That's what you're telling me? He nodded miserably. She swiveled back to me, eyes blazing. You tricked him, she spat. You manipulated him into living under your roof so you could control him. I bristled. Control him? He's free to come and go. The difference is that I don't mislead him about where we stand financially. He's the one who lied to you. Her face flushed with anger, and for a moment I wondered if she might lash out physically. Instead, she reeled in her temper, stepping back with a snide sniff. Well, let's go, Adam, she said firmly. Pack your things. We'll find you a better place. You can't stay under her condescending generosity any longer. Show some pride. Adam glanced at me with weary eyes. I could see the conflict roiling in him. He wasn't a bad man, he simply lacked the backbone to stand up to his mother. I ached, wanting him to choose me, to choose us. But I also realized that maybe, all along, I'd been ignoring the signs that he was too dependent on her approval. Adam, I said gently, if you want to leave, I won't stop you. But if you want to stay, you have to tell your mother clearly. No half-truths. He opened his mouth but hesitated. In the silence, his mother grabbed his arm. Don't be a fool, she hissed. She doesn't respect you. She's humiliated you in front of your own mother. You think she'll treat you well? I almost laughed at that twisted logic but held my tongue. Adam exhaled, shoulders slumping. Mom, this is my wife. I do love her, he said in a small voice. I messed up by lying to you. But leaving her just because you say so, that doesn't feel right. She let out a tiny cry of disbelief as though he'd stabbed her in the heart. Is that your final decision? You'd choose her over me? Her tone dripped with melodramatic indignation. He chewed his lip, glancing my way again, a flicker of hope in his eyes. Then he said, I'm not leaving my wife. I'm staying here. She reeled, horror coloring her features. She looked at me, then him, then me again. You are going to regret this, she whispered, her voice shaking with anger. You have no idea how you'll pay for turning your back on me. I am your mother. I raised you. And you side with a woman you barely know? Fine. Don't expect me to support you ever again. She spun on her heel and marched toward the front door, the living room echoing with the staccato of her footsteps. She paused in the doorway, looking over her shoulder. The day will come when you realize you've made the worst mistake of your life. Then she was gone, slamming the door behind her. Adam stood there, trembling with adrenaline or fear or both. I let out a shaky breath, adrenaline surging through me as well. The room felt quieter than ever. Slowly I walked up to him. You told her you were leaving, I murmured. You let her think that? He cringed. She's been on me for months. She kept saying I was worthless if I couldn't even buy my own house. I didn't want to admit the truth. I'm sorry. I searched his eyes, reading the guilt and sadness there. Adam, you understand how messed up that was, right? She's been insulting me for who knows how long, thinking it was my home that I manipulated you into. Meanwhile, you let her think all that. He nodded, face crumpling. I'm sorry, he repeated. I was afraid you wouldn't want me telling her that you out-earned me. I wanted to appear strong in her eyes. But I see now how it spun out of control. I didn't mean for her to push me to leave you. I sighed, anger mixing with pity. You should have told her from the start. We might have avoided this meltdown. He exhaled a shaking breath. I know. But I swear I never wanted to leave you. She's just so intense. She threatened to cut me off from the family if I kept living here as your lesser. I guess I believed I could juggle both worlds. He ran a hand through his hair. But that's not possible. I considered his words, my heart heavy. It's not just about this house or who paid for it, I said quietly. It's about whether you'll stand up for me in the future. She's not going to give up. She'll keep trying to control you. And I can't live like that, constantly worried she'll tear us apart. He nodded, gaze downcast. I'll do better, he promised. I'll talk to her, make it clear I'm not leaving you. I'm just worried about how vicious she can get. I lifted a hand to his cheek as a wave of tenderness overtook my frustration. Then be prepared, I said. Because I have a feeling she's not done. And if you waver again, I trailed off. He met my eyes, understanding the unspoken warning. If he let her walk all over us again, we might not survive as a couple. He swallowed and nodded. I get it. Over the next few weeks, tension cast a shadow over our home. Adam tried calling his mother multiple times, but she rarely picked up. When she did, she spewed criticisms and hung up. My father-in-law had passed away years before, so there was no buffer in their household. It was just her vendetta fueling a cold war. She posted snide remarks on social media, referencing how some women trap men with illusions of success. Friends and relatives started asking awkward questions. I brushed them off politely, explaining only that we were sorting out personal matters. The support I truly needed came from my own family, who'd always known about my savings and how I purchased the house. They never judged Adam for not being the breadwinner. They only worried about how his mother's toxicity might strain our marriage. Adam, to his credit, began therapy sessions to address his conflict avoidance issues and his fear of disappointing his mother. He wanted to prove to me that he was serious about standing by me, about carving out a life free from her constant meddling. I admired that step, yet I remained cautious. Each day, I wondered if the next phone call from her would spark another meltdown. Sure enough, about 2 months later, Adam's mother unexpectedly rang our doorbell. I answered to find her standing on the porch, posture rigid, lips pressed thin. She let out a curt greeting, then demanded to see her son. I called Adam. He hurried over, face tense. She wasted no time getting to the point. Adam, I've purchased a new condominium in the city, she said flatly. It has your name on it too. You can move in right away. It's bigger, more luxurious, and we'll handle all the expenses. You have a real shot at a better life if you come with me now. My jaw dropped at her audacity. She was effectively bribing him with property, presumably to lure him away from me. Adam blinked, then frowned. Mom, we've talked about this. I'm not leaving my wife. She pursed her lips. Fine. She can come. But it'll be my house, you understand? She'll have no control, no authority. I won't let her overshadow you like she does here. I stifled a bitter laugh. Overshadow him? If anything, I tried to support him in every endeavor. Adam took a shaky breath. Mom, please understand, I'm not living in a place that's just going to create more tension. We have our home. And I'm committed to staying here with my wife. Her face twisted in anger, but Adam pressed on. Thank you, but no. I can't accept your condo. She glared, folding her arms. So that's it? You choose to remain in that woman's shadow in her cramped house? Adam lifted his chin. The house isn't cramped. And it's not just hers, she's my wife, so it's ours in spirit. But legally, yes, it's her property. I'm not ashamed of that. Her eyes flashed. You're a fool, she spat. I wash my hands of this. Don't come crying to me when she throws you out. And you, she faced me, expression venomous. Don't assume you've won. You'll never be part of this family. I won't acknowledge you as my son's wife. You're just some leech who's got him under her thumb. I felt my hands shaking, but I forced a calm tone. That's your choice, I said quietly. But we're married for better or worse, and I won't let you bully us anymore. If Adam wants a relationship with you, that's between you and him. But you have no say in how we live our lives. She stared at me, lips curling in disgust as if searching for a final jab. Then she scoffed and spun around, stomping back down the porch steps. Adam let out a weary sigh as she drove off. I closed the door, leaning against it, heartbeat loud in my ears. Adam, I said softly, I'm sorry it came to this. He wrapped an arm around me, nodding. Me too. But it's better to face it head-on than live in constant fear of her next move. From that day forward, her attempts to pry him away grew less frequent, though they never fully ceased. She occasionally sent him messages, complaining about me, or tried to guilt-trip him into seeing her. He'd visit her occasionally for brief lunches or holiday gatherings if she extended an olive branch, but every time she found a way to slip in nasty comments about me. Adam, however, learned to stand up for our marriage. He cut short any conversation that devolved into insults. And if she refused to relent, he simply left. Meanwhile, I carried on, focusing on making our home a warm, welcoming space. I worked on my career, confident in my ability to support us if needed. Adam also put more effort into his job, determined to prove to himself that he could be an equal partner. Our marriage wasn't perfect, her meddling left scars, but we communicated more openly than ever. I saw glimpses of the man I fell in love with, a man who was kind and conscientious, just burdened by a controlling mother. He realized how toxic her hold on him had been. As for the house, it remained a silent symbol of her misunderstanding. She thought forcing him to leave would prove her dominance, but she had no clue that I'd built this life on my own terms, well before Adam came along. If anything, her meltdown only clarified the lines of ownership, for her sake, for Adam's sake, and for mine. She discovered belatedly that her illusions about my dependence on her son were just that, illusions. Sometimes, late at night, I reflect on that heated confrontation in the living room, the moment she demanded Adam pack his bags, thinking she was kicking me out of his house. How ironically sweet that she never realized the property was mine until I forced Adam to reveal the truth. I wonder if the humiliation changed her perspective, or if it only fueled her spite. Probably the latter. But I can't control her feelings, only how we respond as a couple. Months turned into years. Our marriage weathered storms, but we grew stronger. Adam regained some measure of peace with his mother, though she never fully accepted me. She visited occasionally, each visit fraught with tension, her eyes scanning the house like it was an enemy fortress. I made polite conversation, offered tea, kept it civil. Underneath, we both knew she hated that this was my territory, not hers. But neither of us brought it up. Over time, she realized Adam wouldn't budge. She could either maintain a strained relationship with boundaries or lose him altogether. Every so often, she dropped hints about when Adam decides to get his own place, or when you two upgrade to a bigger home maybe under his name. I just smile politely. I didn't need to flaunt that I could buy another house if I wished. Let her cling to her illusions. Meanwhile, Adam supported me wholeheartedly, telling her we were comfortable and happy, and if we moved anywhere, it would be our joint decision. Eventually, a kind of stalemate emerged. She still disliked me, but she also realized Adam was resolute. He'd chosen our marriage over her manipulations. It wasn't the warm mother-child relationship either of them wanted, but it was the best compromise. And for me, well, I'd come to terms with the fact that not everyone would love me simply because I loved her son. That was a pill I had to swallow to keep my peace. One afternoon, about 3 years after that confrontation, I sat in our living room, sipping coffee and reading a book. Adam joined me, resting a hand on my shoulder. I asked how he felt about everything that had transpired. He sighed. It's not easy, he admitted. But I'm grateful we're still together. I only wish I'd been honest from the start. Maybe we could have spared us some grief. I nodded, leaning against him. We can't change the past, but we can keep building a future on honesty. He kissed my temple gently. Thank you for being patient with me. I know my mother's words hurt you deeply. I took his hand in mine, feeling a wave of affection. They did, I said. But ultimately, you're the one who decided to stand with me. That means more than anything. The house, that was just a bonus surprise she didn't see coming. We chuckled quietly, recalling her stunned face upon learning the truth. Despite the pain, we found humor in how thoroughly her plan backfired. After that day, I never doubted my right to stay in my own home. I never worried about my mother-in-law's threats to evict me. She had no legal or moral claim. Adam embraced his role as my partner, not the caretaker of an image designed to appease her. Our life moved forward. New jobs, occasional travel, the joys and trials of married life. We argued about little things like chores or finances, but we grew better at communication, forging a bond that withstood outside interference. Sometimes I heard whispers in the extended family about how I stole Adam away or how I was the one wearing the pants. I learned to shrug it off. Those who cared to know the truth were welcome to ask. Everyone else could gossip to their heart's content. The important thing was that Adam and I understood each other and we were happy. Meanwhile, my mother-in-law simmered in her discontent, unable to dethrone me from a place she assumed was her son's. That was her choice to remain resentful, not ours. One day she might come around, realize that loving her son means respecting his choices. If not, we'd still keep living our lives. We had a home that we cherished, a partnership built on gradual honesty, and a future that belonged to both of us. And in a poetic twist, the house that she once tried to commandeer, assuming it was in Adam's name, remained my safe haven, a testament to independence and the power of forging one's own path. She had forced him to leave me, not knowing the house was mine, and in the end, it was she who had to leave, outmaneuvered by her own misguided arrogance. That knowledge never stopped giving me a quiet satisfaction. Not the malicious kind, but the type that reassures you the world sometimes balances itself. She tried to tear us apart, but all she accomplished was exposing the cracks in Adam's facade and helping us repair them. The house, ironically, was just the stage for that confrontation. If she had known from the start it was mine, perhaps she would have used a different strategy. But fate or chance led her to wage a battle on false assumptions, and we emerged stronger in the aftermath. Looking back, I can't claim the journey was easy. Her words wounded me deeply, and Adam's initial cowardice tested my faith in him. Yet, from that trial, we both learned about boundaries, loyalty, and the necessity of speaking our truths fearlessly. I believed love could outlast meddling, but I discovered it requires active effort and unwavering resolve. Adam had to grow a backbone. I had to stand firm without letting resentment consume me. Together, we confronted her attempts to dominate him, forging a unity she could not break. Now, whenever I step through the front door, I'm reminded of how close we came to letting her evict me from my own home. My chest warms with gratitude that we overcame it. Adam's there in the next room humming some tune while preparing dinner. The echoes of tension linger only as faint memories. We know who we are, and we've proven that no outside force can sever our bond, certainly not one built on lies and assumptions. In time, perhaps, my mother-in-law might mellow. Maybe she'll realize that I'm not the enemy, that I genuinely care for her son. Or maybe she'll cling to her bitterness. Either way, we'll continue living, loving, and standing by each other in our humble house that she once believed was hers to control. It's ours in the sense of our marriage, but it's mine in the eyes of the law and the bank. Knowing that is enough. It's a quiet testament to the power of truth, independence, and the surprising ways life can upend misguided arrogance. And in that knowledge, I find a peaceful sense of victory that no one can take away.